It's great to see everybody here. I'm Mark Tulay. I serve as CECP's Director of the Strategic Investor Initiative, where we bring together CEOs and $25 trillion in assets under management and try to create a movement that I'll talk about later. So if you like what you hear today, the credit goes to all the speakers, but if you don't like what you hear, it's all my fault. So, and I think based on, and I'm easy to find because I think I'm the one person in San Francisco that's wearing a tie, except for a few people here. So anyways, and I had a friend that said yesterday that if you can't do it right, at least be quick. So I'll be quick with my remarks. And we have a great program lined up. We've got a special welcome from Brewster, Aust, from Vice Chairman from NASDAQ, who's going to follow. He's been our host for today, followed by a CEO long-term plan presentation from Geisha Williams, which was going to be fascinating, President of PG&E. Next, we'll hear from Charles Penner, partner with Jana Partners, to share his unique perspective on a new form of activism in ESG investing. So this is kind of cutting-edge stuff. This will be followed by a trend talk from Evan Harvey, Global Head of Sustainability from NASDAQ, and a KPMG presentation on the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, that promises to be a showstopper. So no pressure, Catherine. Then we'll have a short break. We'll actually give you a break for 15 minutes, and we have these wonderful lunches over there, the box lunches, and so we'll have a working lunch. And we'll hear from SASB's Janine Gilliott and BlackRock's Verity Shiger. So this will be a very exciting, packed day. And we'll wrap up the day with two more presentations, one from Timothy Sloan, CEO and President of Wells Fargo, who will be here shortly, and he'll present the company's long-term plan. And then, if that isn't enough, you'll hear Mike Cruz tell you everything you need to know about integrated reporting in 15 minutes. So we've given everyone about half the time they need and want, so we're trying to compress 8 hours of content into 4 hours. And people that know me know that I start on time and I end on time, and I think that's very important. A few logistics. There's very little flex time built into the agenda today, so we're only going to have that one break. And if folks can, between 1 o'clock, then that's when the lunches will be served. And is Stephen Brown here? Stephen Brown isn't here. So we wanted to first recognize Catherine Blue's here. If she could stand up and recognize, I wanted to recognize KPMG sponsorship for today. So without that, then we wouldn't have been able to have this event today. So thank you very much, KPMG. And we're very grateful to recognize KPMG as a sponsor. I'd also like to recognize Evan Harvey, if Evan Harvey can stand up, or is he in the back room? Oh, he's in the back, hiding there. So without Evan, we wouldn't have this great facility. So thank you, Evan, and thank you for being such a good ambassador on the Strategic Investor Initiative's advisory board. Lastly, you'll see in your folders some great content. There's a great report by KPMG. There's an investor letter that is signed by 11 institutional investors who are calling for these long-term plans that you'll hear today. So that's the first time investors have gotten together at this level and come together with a letter, and you'll hear more about that from Daryl. I'll leave you with one of my favorite quotes. Hearing tells you what the music is playing, but listening, truly listening, tells you what the song is saying. There are times when we hear, but we forget to listen. So I hope that you'll take the time to listen today and also fill out this feedback form, which really helps shape, it's the green form, and that really helps inform and shape future events. The last thing I'll say is, before I turn it over to Daryl, for me, CECP's Strategic Investor Initiative is not just a program, and this is not just an event. It's the beginning of a movement to bring together long-term perspective to capital market decision making. It's a movement to influence voting and engagement efforts for trillions of dollars in assets under management. It's a movement to move trillions of dollars to companies that demonstrate true performance excellence. It's a movement to move financial markets to more sustainable outcomes. And it's also a movement that works thanks to the support of 25 trillion in investor assets under management that support us, and 30 CEOs that had the courage to come up and give their long-term plans. And with that, I invite Daryl Brewster, CEO of CECP, to the stage.
Thank you, Mark. Let's give Mark a well done. Thank you. And good morning. And thanks, Mark, for really pulling together really a world-class agenda today, I think, which we'll all enjoy, and also for playing such an important role in the movement that you talk about. So this is something that I think we're starting to see some progress from so many fronts going on. Today we're going to hear from some leading CEOs, relatively new into their roles, as well as a number of speakers and panels. And I always wonder when I come to these conferences, where do these panels lead? Right? All these wonderful people talking in preparation, but whatever happens. And today is really, in some ways, the result of a woman from California, who else would it be, speaking at a panel, a CEO panel, at CECP's annual CEO conference. We call it the Board of Boards. The woman, Ann Stossball, at the time was the CEO of CalPERS, the biggest pension fund in America. And she had, this is a group you have to imagine that's mostly, she's looking at scores of CEOs who come to our event. They're mostly male, they're mostly pale, and I will stop at that point. But as she gets up, had 16 words that really are an inspiration for what we have talked about today. And Ann, in her first words in the panel, hopefully we'll see some of this in our panels today, right? Some of the panels, it's like going to the choir practice. Everybody's talking to each other and they're all agreeing. And Ann, looking at these scores of CEOs, said, at CalPERS, I think I own a piece of just about every one of you. And you're all too short-term oriented. The CEOs agreed. 86% of them said, we're too short-term oriented. We make decisions to benefit the short term that are not necessarily in our longer-term interests. But it's not our fault. Actually, it's your fault. Anyway, we had a bit of a debate back and forth. Whose issue was it? What was the causes, et cetera? And then Ann said, I'll tell you what. Why don't you all come out to Sacramento and share their long-term plans? At which time, two CEOs, I had public company CEO, one I had competed against and one I had worked with, both kicked me at the same time and said, please don't make us go to Sacramento. For a bunch of reasons, but then we're going to have to go to Austin, we're going to have to go to Boston. Can't you guys just do this? How hard could it be? And that, in a way, was sort of the inspirational moment for the CECP's Strategic Investor Initiative and the CEO Investor Forums, and Mark has really done a great job, and his team really making that happen. The notion here was to operationalize what Ann was talking about, and the letters, anybody read the Larry Fink letter? Right? Or letters from Bill McNabb at Vanguard or others. But how do we have this conversation? The short term matters, it's how we get liquidity in the markets, et cetera. But how do we have these conversations about these really material issues? So just a quick update on some of the names that are involved, some of the numbers, some of what we've learned, some of the knowledge we've gained, and a few of the quick next steps as we then introduce our host. First, in terms of names, our co-chairs of this effort are now Bill McNabb, Executive Chair of Vanguard. Just retired as their CEO, but still very involved and engaged. We actually had to make him retire so he could do his co-chair role. And Alex Gorski, who is the chairman and CEO of J&J, pretty well-performing company. The advisory board on this group, and Mark's done a great job and team pulling together, includes the world's leading investors, world's leading companies, and also professional service firms, the intermediaries who make this whole thing come together. We've then had CEOs present. We're up to 30. That have presented or signed to present. We've had Allstate and Aetna. We've had Merck and Medtronic. We've had Prudential. We'll hear from P&G today. We've had Unilever and UPS. We've had Welltower, and we'll hear from Wells Fargo, and dozens more who have all shared their long-term plans. First time this has ever happened, right, where people have kind of gone through it. Efforts as we go forward. Cool stuff. The numbers. Today we'll go over $2 trillion of market cap that share their long-term plans. As Mark mentioned, we tend to have $25 trillion in the room. One design, today's event is smaller. We've kind of brought together for this, the first round here on the West Coast. We've been able to hear those plans. Last one we had 5, and this is it's all FD compliant, it's all being webcast. Last time we had over $5 trillion of assets under management, over 1,000 people from I think 50 countries who also listened in. So remember, everything you say is webcasted for the world. So the numbers are there. We've had a lot of knowledge. We'll hear more about that today, and Brian, who's leading our efforts there. Good insights. We've had coaching sessions, over 100 coaching sessions, or close to 100 with our companies. Help them. The 7 questions, then the investor's letter, you'll see. First time we've got institutional investors to agree on what matters that they want to hear from these calls. You can read that in your books. And every time we have one of these, we share new insights and learning so that the space can move forward. Next steps, we're going to hear more about it. We got more work to do on metrics. We have a session, I think, with Sadsby and others today about how do we get those long-term metrics. It's hard enough to get short-term metrics in income statements and balance sheets and generally accepted, but how do we get those that we can all align on, both the leading and lagging indicators from that perspective? We need your feedback. So feedback forms are critical, as Mark said. So we'll have those, and we won't let you leave until you complete those, so make it much easier from that standpoint. And we need to scale things up. And what better place, because this is kind of an entrepreneurial venture engaging with the world's leading companies, investors, and professional service firms. And what better place to kind of think about also how we scale stuff up would be in this wonderful entrepreneurial center, right, here at NASDAQ. Really a great piece. And what better person to host us than Brewster Aust, who is really the driver behind this center. He is the president of the center. It's actually a nonprofit organization, and also is the vice chairman of NASDAQ, he's done a brilliant job of getting some of the great listings here in the West Coast and around the globe to join NASDAQ as their platform. So we're really delighted to have Bruce here. It was about a dozen years he spent at Fidelity, 20 years now here with NASDAQ, last 4 back on the West Coast. He is also a Golden Knight from the University of Southern Mississippi. And we don't get that every time here at these events. But Bruce, I'd like to introduce you, and thank you again for hosting us.
Thank you, Daryl. Thank you. Thanks, Daryl, and thanks, Mark. I think we've got to get you guys to take the ties off next time you come back to California. We don't wear ties out here, but so I just thought, I appreciate the introduction and the opportunity to just give you a brief overview of what we do here at the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center. Something we're very proud of. So we launched this in the fall of 2015. And our goal with the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center, and because we've had so many great entrepreneurs that have listed and grown their companies on NASDAQ, like Steve Jobs, Howard Schultz, John Mackey from Whole Foods. We've got great companies, Jeff Bezos, all these amazing entrepreneurs that have started great companies. We really thought about how can we educate the next generation of entrepreneurs. So through our NASDAQ Educational Foundation, we launched a center almost 3 years ago now. And we're very proud of the stats that we've been able to create in just 3 short years. We had thousands of entrepreneurs through the center. We're proud of the diversity in the center. We've had 60% minorities come through the center in the first 3 years. We've had 50% women in the first 3 years. And our programming that we have at the center is all free to the entrepreneurs. We have classes on everything from startup law, which is taught by one of our great sponsors, Wilson Sonsini. We have startup finance sponsored by KPMG, another one of our great sponsors here at the center. And it really is tapping into the ecosystem that is NASDAQ and is the entrepreneurial community that we have here in the Silicon Valley in the Bay Area, and helping these young entrepreneurs take their ideas to the next level. So I encourage you to look at our website. It's NASDAQ Center, entrepreneurialcenter.org, and you can apply to any of those classes that you want to. We have, as you can see, we have a state-of-the-art broadcast studio here, so we do a 2-day media training course as well to help CEOs communicate with the media. We do have a lot of training on talking to investors, because obviously we know as these young entrepreneurs are going out trying to raise money for their companies, we can help them as they speak to those VCs and other angel investors that are out there. So we spend a great deal of time on how we can help them really grow and develop. We've got great programs such as our Milestone Maker program, and this is a 12-week course that we've launched that will have over 12 entrepreneurs in a group where we'll put them through what it takes to really launch a company, and they're all obviously trying to reach some milestone in their journey, whether it be raising seed capital or launching a product or hiring new talent. So we help them with those milestones. So it's been a great program. We have great partnerships with Wilson Sonsini, KPMG, but also Lehigh University as one of the leading engineering schools on the East Coast. They see the value of being here in the Valley, so their students come and take entrepreneurial studies classes from us once a quarter. We also have great partnerships around the world. So we have New Zealand Trade Authority, which is also one of our sponsors. We have a partnership with the UK and with Australia. So it is really a global center. And when you think about entrepreneurship, San Francisco and the Bay Area is really a place to do it. So thank you all for being here. The topics you're talking about today are key to us and our listed companies. Evan Harvey is going to talk a little bit about NASDAQ and how we look at sustainability. But hope you enjoyed the day, and thanks again for being at the Entrepreneurial Center.